welcome to another live demonstration. Today I want to show you the Schmincke limited edition Horadam pearl colours and gold metallic colours. These are fabulous, but they are a limited edition. We had stock in, it flew out the door. We just got stock in, but I think after that, that's it. So these are watercolours with that really lovely shimmer. So they're one pigment with a mica pigment, and you can see there, you can get the shimmer. Are you getting that?
Yeah, a little
bit. So you do get this little colour chart in the pan, which is really useful. It got a little small. I got very small trying to write everything on it. So I've written the pigment and the light fast qualities, and it also tells you whether it's staining or opaque. And this is all on the coverings of the pan. So once you've got rid of those, which I haven't, I've put them somewhere safe, I just can't locate them at the moment. There's not much more information on the pan. So it's really useful to either create your own, which I have done here, in a little bit bigger, bigger information, or use the colour charts that I provided, because once you've lost those little wrappers, it's really difficult to know what's in them. May not need to, but for future reference. So all the colours are semi-staining and semi-opaque, which if you're going to lift them, you know that they may not lift as cleanly as non-staining colours. And you can see here on the white paper, the colours really ping, and the golds are really lovely. Again, you've got that lovely shimmer. One pigment, as I've said before, so it tells me the one pigment. The one thing I did notice was the magenta's only a 2-star, which is limited light fastness. I know you do get, often with a magenta or a purple, limited light fastness because of the pigments used. So just be aware that that does have limited light fastness. The rest are all 3 or above, which means they're very good light fast. But magenta has the limited. Try it on a different colour. So the real difference is the colours. See on the white how really clear, bright the colours are. On the black has absorbed the colour, but it's left the shimmer. So, as with anything, you have a play, you have a little try and see how they work. And I was just having a little play with some of the colours, just creating, let's try over here, a little rose. And what often, as with anything, is you need to let them dry. So you can see the colour go on, and it does look pink, but it does tend to disappear. I need a bigger brush for this, really. But let's push it down. There we go. See how easy that is just to bring out a little rose. Need a leaf now. Okay. So something different, the brightness on the white compared to the much more subtle colours on the black. And that's what I'm going to use, actually, is I'm going to demonstrate this Peacock. And I've done it on the white to show you how the colours are. Now, they're not as bright as watercolours which don't have the mica pigments in. The mica pigments have taken some of that real brightness of the colour down, but they work alongside watercolours, so you can have the real rich watercolours and use these for subtle highlights like speckles on the water, just added power, a bit of shimmer somewhere. But I've used just the pearlescent colours in this demonstration just so we can see the full potential of just this product. So that's on white, but what I'm going to do is do it on the black. And so the colours should be a lot more subtle, but I think it works quite well. Let's put that aside. I'll put it under there so I don't lose it. So they come in these lovely tins, and like I say, once you've removed the wrapping, it is a little bit more difficult to know what's what, so I keep them in the order that is on the colour chart. But to be fair, you can see the colours. You've got reds and yellows and blues. So I'm going to start in the eye. And because I'm working black, I don't need to create the black. It's already there. So I'm just picking up the colour from the pan. And I'm just going to add it to the eye. So on the black, the colour really doesn't ping quite as much as it does on the white.
We can see the shine though.
You can see the shine. Well, that's good. I'm just putting some yellow in. I did notice that sometimes if I layer, so once this layer's dried and add another layer of that colour on, it does start to bring a little bit of the colour out. But this initial layer, the black absorbs that colour. Not technically, but it's all to do with the light and how it sees the colour. There we go. So not a huge amount of colour. I don't know if it's picking it up there. Once I put it on, it tends to disappear a little bit. But you do see slightly more subtle colours. So I'll go for this cyan because that's a lovely blue. Start to pick up the cyan. So I'm working on a black background. So I'm just making sure I'm leaving some of the areas of the paper. Use the paper to your advantage. It's going to be quite dark around here. So I'm leaving the paper. Just a lot of it is just the texture you can make with a brush, which is why I like using the brush in a directional way. It creates the texture of the feathers for you. So anything that does the job for you is great. So once I put it on, I can see the blue, but once it starts to dry, it tends to disappear. So I'm going to use some, this is the white gold, to just bring out a lot of it. You don't completely see until it is dry. So I'm bringing out the white blaze across the eyebrow.
Oh, sorry, Anita.
Yes.
So are there 6 gold colours?
There are 6 golds. So you can get a set of the 6 gold colours, or a set of the 12 pearlescent colours. I've got the full set of the 18, all limited edition. And like I say, we've had stock in once. It flew out the door, and this could be the last amount of stock we get. So it is a limited edition, which is a shame because it's a really beautiful product and very popular. It's really nice to work with. And it's just a beautiful set to have alongside your watercolours, just for that mixed media, just to add a little bit of shimmer to a watercolour, just to add texture and a little bit extra. It's a great thing about watercolours, how they've developed now to be able to still work in the watercolour medium, but be able to add watercolour mediums or watercolour pearlescent paints like these. So I've changed colours. This is the darker blue. Going on, I can see the blue. And I will add other colours like the green and purple, which you can't always see, but I think it just brings it together. So I'm just looking at the direction of the feathers on the top of the head and using the brush. See how that does the job? Keep just swapping between the 2 blues just to mix up the colours a little bit. Now I'm trying not to work too well. I'm actually trying to pick up quite a bit more of the pigment, just so I can see if I can get the colour to pop a little bit more. Again, thinking about the dark areas, what can I leave? So blue, I'm going to add a little bit of green. Just drop some of the green on top. A bit of purple. This is where you can just add a bit of colour, and it in the end will work. Like I say, now I'm starting to put colour over the initial layer, and that's where it starts to just ping a little bit more. So here I had colour. Swapping between the blues, I'll just keep picking up a different blue just to have a mix. I'm not sure if you can see that the blue's starting to ping out a bit. A bit more. Okay, just make sure that's all one unit and it's not separate. Now often I talk about leaving halos around, but when you're working with the black, you do need to think about leaving your dark areas. So you do tend to leave halos or areas around the beak and the eye, just so you can get that to be the darkest. I like working on black. It's a fun because you have to think slightly differently, but it has this wonderful effect. So I'm going to pick up some green, just looking at that area which is dark. Let's pick up some purple. Yeah, and I know you can't fully see it on the original image, but I think they do, just to show that pearlescence of the feathers that you get on a peacock. So even a black bird isn't totally black. It will have lots more colours. So with this blue, the peacock colour, I can just add greens and purples to complement the colours. So you can see, it's very subtle. It's really not... I don't know if you can see it better than I can, but for me it looks quite flat, so I'm working a little blind. The light tends to do that.
It looks shiny.
It looks shiny.
And we can see the colours coming through.
Good. But I do know if I leave it and once it's dried, the colours will be there. Not bright, but you'll have enough of a colour just to be able to see the colours you've put on. So it's quite dark. Let's take that up. Okay. Stand back. Going to... That's dark under here, so I don't want to do too much work. Let's take this down. What I'm going to do is this is where the neck goes into the back, and because I'm trying to remind myself that the neck is quite dark, I'm putting the colour on now. And again round the beak, because these colours are so very close to each other once they dry, I'm going to have to leave that little halo that I talk about, just to make it a little bit more prominent. So the feathers on the back are much longer and much finer. So I'll try and represent this, pick up some green. I can see the colour going on. Across the back it goes up there. So I'm just thinking about where I want my colours to go, and the different types of feather you can see. So these are quite long, they lace soft along the back at the moment while the tail is down. And they have a little wave in them. So it's just noticing all your different textures. Blue, to keep that smooth. Just rolling the brush as I work with it. This helps to keep the point, which is a good tip for when you are working like this and you want to keep a point on a brush. Just roll it as you work with it. Losing, see if I can add colour by putting it on the initial. Very white. Let's go back in with that gold, and let's just, so I think that's quite wet. Let's try and pick up a lot more pigment. So I'm going to dab that on because you can see dark spaces between this. Again, different texture of feather. At the moment it's looking a little bit one directional, so I need to change that by just adding a little bit more colour. Top. I can see here the green and the purple and the blue coming through. So let's see if I can add a bit more blue. So now I've got technically an initial layer of much lighter paper, so that might make the colour ping a little bit more. Not doing solid colour, just thinking about moving it around. Pick up some purple, let's grab some more purple in the top. Right, let's see what I can do around this eye. So blue comes down here. Let's go back in with the brown and see if I can pick up a little bit more colour. Not enough. Pick it up. That's what's annoying me. It's not working there. Because I've left the highlight out, which you normally do with the white, but actually the highlight is white. So didn't need to leave it out. Pick up. Right, let's see if putting the feathers around the eye darker. So dark along here, I want to keep it, but I don't want it to be just solid. Again, down this lovely back. The feathers are longer again. Let's pick up some purple. Let's add some different colours. A lot of it, I just think about what the picture needs. It's not always what you are seeing, but you can see from the picture what maybe it needs a little bit more of. Let's put some purple in here, because this is quite flat at the moment.
Anita?
Yes?
I've noticed you're using a sable, which isn't like you.
No, I know, because it was the first brush I picked up, to be honest. No, it's also, it keeps, because I'm working quite loosely and doing those long fine lines, it's quite a nice brush to hold. And if you work very gently and softly with it, you get those lovely lines that I'm creating here. So, yes, I would normally use synthetic, but I think for this very delicate, soft lines I'm trying to create, I just like the feel of the synthetic. sable, sorry. So yes, thank you for picking up on that. But
I do spot that. Pay attention. That's what it is.
I do have synthetics nearby, so I'm not far from them, but it's working. When I feel that it just isn't working or I need to change brushes, I will do, but it's working really nicely for this technique. So I keep going over the same area because I want to try and ping out the colour a little bit more. The eye's annoying me, but I'll live with that for a minute. Let's pick up a different green. So there's two greens. There's a green bluish and there's a green not so wet. Let's try and get the colour. Right. Let's go on to the beak. So this is quite light. I'm just going to have to think about leaving the nostril here. And it goes in. So again, another texture. This is very smooth, so I'm going to keep it quite even. I'm going to have some of this halo, which I have talked about, but not completely solid. And I can see some more colours in here. So this bird has its beak open, so it's quite dark inside, which is great because I don't need to do anything because the paper's already done it for me. Let's pick up some yellow. So add that. When you're looking at subtle colours, you just got to pick out every colour you can see, or even not see, to be honest. I'm adding additional colour, so looking at the shape, the beak comes round here. It has underneath a shadow, but it has a little bit of pink or red touch to it. Inside is going to be the darkest, but it picks up a little bit light here. So this is where I'm actually going to keep it a lot wetter. Okay, so let's work on shapes, because this isn't very clean. Right, so there is a black in this, but it's not black, it's a pearlescent black, so it has that darker touch to it. So let's see if I can remedy bits around the eye. Darker here. So if I have missed areas, I'm going to try and see if I can just capture them. It's not going to be as dark as it would be with a paint. It's still going to go back, but it's going to give me that little bit of darkness I may have missed. If I can get this again under here. So I'll take this into the, that's quite a nice colour, it works quite well. Let's look at the eye. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break because I'm going to keep fiddling and it may not work. So take a break, put my brush down, have a look and come back to you in a minute, and then we'll continue to work on areas that actually really need working on rather than the ones I keep overworking.
Let us bring out the artist in you. If you'd like to learn how to paint or improve your painting, the SAA is here to inform, encourage and inspire you every step of the way. When you become an SAA member, you get so many benefits, including the free bi-monthly newsletter Paint, packed with inspiring step-by-step projects, fascinating articles, and detailed information to get your creative juices flowing. Discounts on over 13,000 art products featured on the SAA website and in the Home Shop catalogue, With free order line and free delivery in the UK mainland, a devoted SAA team on hand to answer your questions and give you the confidence and motivation you need to start painting and develop at a pace that suits you. Plus, a free welcome pack filled with gifts and practical help to get you started, as well as the opportunity to make friends with like-minded people.
Best thing of being a member is the inspiration from the magazines, to be able to purchase things at a very reasonable price.
Yeah, you get the reduction on all the materials, the advice you get.
I can shop from home.
It's a community.
It seemed like a very friendly sort of organisation.
If somebody's thinking of joining, don't spend too long thinking. Just join. They'll love it.
Hello and welcome back. So in that short break, I have had a chance to stand, to look, to review. One area is under the neck here. I'm going to try and lift off. Now this isn't a watercolour paper, this is a cartridge paper, which is working really nicely. So I want to see if I can lift off here, because I think I've overworked it, or at least tone down the colours. Being very careful because it isn't a watercolour paper, so that's nice actually, I like that. It's not overly open to being lifted and manipulated, but that worked quite well. That's taken down and given me even a mid-tone colour. I might work on that here as well. So mistakes or areas which don't look right are often a chance to learn, to see how just blotting out the colour works, and I like that, so I might use that here because I'm finding that is all two directional. So what I'm going to do is instead of using those very fine strokes, I'm going to just block in colour a little bit more. So that is why I constantly keep saying is walking away from your work, because you do get very over-focused. And I'm probably overworking, not necessarily need to do this. Right, so because that worked really well, I'm going to try work on the eye, which has got a little bit lost. Okay, see if I can do that with trusty synthetic. I should be able to bring that back. Now, pearlescent does, okay, that's great, does get everywhere, so I can see it in the water. So what I would advise, if you're using this alongside your normal watercolours, is to have a separate water pot. It makes a really lovely finish in the water, but what it will do is contaminate your... Yay! So being able to bring that back, let's sharpen it off. Because it's getting square. And see if I can lift around, because I've lost dark areas around. Oh, that's working. That's so much better just doing that. I've overworked, lost those lovely dark areas around the eye. So let's go back in. Like I say, working on the dark can be quite difficult because you've got to remember to leave the paper underneath. And this is the difference with the synthetic. It's a much stiffer bristle, and it's great for this lifting off. So I knew these are staining colours, so I'm not getting a completely full lift, but it's enough to take it back. And like I say, the paper's actually quite robust, considering it isn't a watercolour paper. I'm quite pleased. Again, I've overworked here.
Anita,
Yes.
this would work on a black watercolour ground, maybe?
Yeah, there's lots of... So this isn't a watercolour paper, this is a cartridge paper, but it's working really nicely. What Gary's talking about is the fabulous watercolour grounds that you can get. So these are grounds which allow you to be able to put a preparation layer, a ground, onto pretty much any surface. I've done it onto yoghurt pots. You can do it onto plastic. You can do it onto tins, you know, tin cans, and allow you to paint with watercolour. Now, the ground is not the same as the paper, because it's not quite as absorbent, but I find it holds the watercolour really nicely. And to be honest, I've not even varnished some of them, and the colour's just sitting there. As long as I don't get it wet, it works fine. And they're available in, depend on the brand, but you can have a really nice coarse ground, which allows you to have a lot of texture. A nice fine ground, which you can also put on with a painting knife before you put a watercolour on. You can have it in a taupe colour, a beige colour, clear. So if you're doing a watercolour on wood or an area that you want to retain the colour underneath, but you want to paint on with watercolour and the surface isn't suitable, it has to have some absorption for watercolour. So you've got the clear, you've got a pearlescent layer, both in gold and white. There's many different watercolour grounds, and it all means you can paint on with watercolour. And I think I forgot to say, black. So you do get a black watercolour ground.
That's where I was going.
I know you were, and I went the long way round, because I'm thinking as well. Okay. Right, let's go on to here. This is really easy. Just blob it on. Just choosing different areas for different colours. Picking up greens and purples. I know that the feathers, they've just got to really think about the direction. So what I'm going to do is, whichever colour I have on, I'm just going to bring it down into the head. Pick up blue again. These colours are quite subtle. For me, I do find it a little bit difficult with subtle colours, but I do enjoy this. I enjoy the quality, and you'll see it's so differently once it's dried. Okay, making sure you have it going around the head. Now that's very even, that's easily solved. Let's pick up the white. Oh, this is gold actually, this is white gold. The eye's definitely corrected itself. And there's some very fine layers. One last pass over to see if I can just keep the colour on this initial layer. See if I can keep, you can see the blue going on. Change brushes. This is where I can feel I wasn't getting, it just didn't feel, it was too, this is why you have different brushes, and I can feel when it's not working for me. Don't know if I will get any more colour on here. Purple. And that's definitely improved the eye by lifting it back out. Green. Let's dab some green here and there. Okay, so I mean there's probably areas I still need to work on. I can just see one area here, I don't like that floating and not touching the head. But I don't know if you can just see the lovely quality of these pillows. You don't have to use them all like I have. You know, use them in as part of a painting. So limited edition, so it literally is while stocks last for this fabulous set. Like I say, I've got the full set, but you can choose to get the set of 6 or the set of 12. Fabulous one pigment colour with mica pigments, and you've just got such a range of options you can do with them. Mix media, a normal watercolour with shimmer, black paper. So have fun, and I hope you get a chance to try them. And join us later in the week for a live workshop with Lisa Ann Watkins.